Hello, I'm Alan, and welcome to today's edition of Alan's Cycling Adventures. Today we are riding to Niles, Ohio. It is our last full day in Ohio, as tomorrow we head into Pennsylvania for our fifth and final rest day. If you enjoyed today's video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. Click the subscribe button to subscribe to my channel. And if you have any questions, comments, suggestions, or ideas for future editions of Alan's Cycling Adventures, be sure to leave them in the comments below. Well, without further ado, let's ride.
So my main recollection for this leg of the journey is I really got a late start this morning. Not quite late enough to leave with the late group, but nowhere near early enough to leave with the early group. As a matter of fact, when I was getting ready to leave my room, it was already about 7:01 at that point, so I was already missing the briefing. So I was going to carry my bags and wheel my bike at the same time. I usually do it in 2 trips. I got ready to leave the room and said, you know what? I think I need to use the bathroom one last time. And it was a good thing I did, because I did have to use the bathroom. But and I apologize if that's too much information. But by the time I got downstairs and got started, I was about 20 minutes late, 20 minutes behind the early group, 10 minutes ahead of the late group. And so if it looks like the beginning of this ride was pretty solitary, that's why. That wasn't a bad thing. There were some beautiful views I got to see. I enjoy being just by myself in my thoughts. If you've been watching my videos, you may remember that was one of my favorite parts of riding from the Continental Divide, was that it was such an easy ride. And I was just lost in my thoughts and totally by myself and totally enjoying every moment of it. This was not an easy ride like coming from the Continental Divide, but it was one of those rides where you're just by yourself in the moment, enjoying the scenery. So, yeah, I'm not sorry that I was 20 minutes late. It did mean that I got caught by the late group faster than I ordinarily would have. The irony is I did catch members of the early group before I even got to the first sag. So I'm definitely getting stronger, that's for sure. Anyway, in terms of the ride, and by the way, this ride, when we left Wooster, it was foggy, and the hotel in Wooster was pretty much on very low ground compared to the surrounding areas. So it was pretty much an immediate climb away from the hotel and out of the fog, which was kind of interesting. In terms of the ride, we rode from Wooster to Niles. I left at 7:22 a.m. As you can see, I learned my lesson from the day before. I am wearing arm and leg warmers in this video. And that was a good thing, because at the start it was clear and 48 degrees Fahrenheit with a feels like temperature of 46 degrees Fahrenheit. So just a little too chilly to have bare arms and legs. The humidity was 87%. And the wind was 2.9 miles per hour from the northwest. We were predominantly going north and northeast, so I guess we had a little bit of a tailwind component. In any event, the length of the ride was 93.20 miles. I had an average moving speed of 14.8 miles per hour today, and a maximum speed of 41.7 miles per hour. My total moving time was 6 hours, 16 minutes, and 46 seconds. And my elapsed time was 7 hours, 25 minutes, and 57 seconds. No flats today, by the way. Woohoo! My average heart rate was 114 beats per minute. and my max heart rate was 132 beats per minute. And of course, when I have full heart rate data, my calorie burn data is skewed downwards. According to Garmin and Strava, I burned 1,797 calories. My average cadence was 64 RPM, and my max cadence was 123 RPM. In terms of elevation gain, according to Ride with GPS, we were supposed to have 3,346 feet of elevation gain. According to Strava's map data, it was 3,597 feet. And according to Garmin's barometric data, it was 3,930 feet. I had a total of 22,208 pedal strokes according to my cadence sensor, and according to Strava, my average power output was 104 watts. There were 3 Garmin climbs on this ride. The first one started immediately at mile 0.0, so as soon as I started pedaling away from the hotel. It was 1.63 miles in length. We gained 269 feet at an average gradient of 3%. That was followed fairly closely by the second Garmin climb, which started at 2.47 miles in. It was 0.57 miles in length. We gained 180 feet. This one was a little steeper. It had an average gradient of 5%. And then the third Garmin climb started at 33.2 miles in. It was 0.64 miles in length. We gained 135 feet at an average gradient of 3%. In terms of where we rode, obviously we started in Wooster. The entire ride was in Ohio. We rode through Orville, not like Orville Wright. It's actually spelled with 2 R's, not 1. Then Marshallville, Canal Fulton, McDonaldsville. We rode past the Akron-Canton Airport, which means we were not that far from Canton, which means that I was close to the Pro Football Hall of Fame and didn't actually get to go see it. So someday. We rode through Greentown, Cairo, not the one in Egypt, the one in Ohio, Hartville, Marlboro, Limaville, Atwater, Deerfield, Berlin Center, Ellsworth, West Hill Heights, Canfield, West Austintown, Mineral Ridge, and finally we rode into Niles. By the way, as a result of my having been late for the start of the ride, I did not get to attend a morning briefing. I also did not really do my due diligence in terms of reading the cue sheet ahead of time or looking closely at the map. So the whole ride was pretty much a surprise to me in terms of what I got to experience. And when I was getting ready to leave the second SAG, there were a couple of people talking about a bike path we were going to be on, which I knew nothing about up until that point. Turned out to be a nice, pleasant surprise about the trip, because the last, I guess, 10 miles of the last 15, something like that, were along this multi-use path that was beautiful and flat and didn't have a lot of people on it. The only downside is there were a bunch of places where you had to cross a road where the crossing traffic did not stop, and so you had to stop and look and then go. But it was a really nice bike path. Let's see, that's about it for reflections on today's ride. I would say today was a climbing day. Not as much as yesterday was, but more than some others. Certainly had its ups and downs, I'll say that. Tomorrow is not a climbing day. Tomorrow we are riding to Erie, Pennsylvania for our 5th and final rest day. Probably about half of the ride, it looks like, is going to be along Lake Erie, one of the Great Lakes. So that's going to be pretty cool. It also looks like that second half of the ride is going to be pretty flat as a result. The ride itself is 89.9 miles in length. So it is longer than our average ride, but it is shorter than today's or yesterday's, or the day before, I think, if I remember correctly. I think it's the shortest of those last 4 days leading into the rest day. In terms of climbing, we are only doing 1,634 feet of climbing, which is less than half of what we did today. So knock on wood, should be an easy ride. I did look at the weather forecast. I am thinking, although I'll make a game time decision on this one tomorrow morning, but I am thinking of not using the arm and leg warmers because I think it's supposed to be up into the 60s within the first couple hours of our ride, and I think it's supposed to be in the low to mid 50s at the start. And thus far, I have been doing those temperatures bare-armed and bare-legged. And so I think tomorrow will probably be the same. Same weather forecast, though. I was looking at the wind. We actually have an app we've all been using called Epic Ride Weather, which you select your route and what time you're leaving and what you anticipate your average speed to be. And it gives you a forecast based on the location and the times that you will be going through the area. And even though we're going north and then turning east, it looks like we're going to have almost a direct tailwind the entire time. When we get up towards Lake Erie, the wind actually shifts to be out of the west instead of out of the south or the southwest. So, should be a good ride tomorrow. But we'll see. Of course, weather is always subject to change. At the end of this trail, as you can see, I got onto some roads and, as usual, found my way to a convenience store, had something to eat, grabbed my chocolate milk, and continued on to the hotel, which is what I'm doing here. I'm on my way to the hotel. So that's basically it for today's ride. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will catch you tomorrow.
All right, I am here in Niles, Ohio. It is our last day in Ohio. Tomorrow we go into Pennsylvania for our rest day. And so it's a good day. Well, until next time, stay safe out there.